top of the table clash between Arsenal and Liverpool saw the Gunners come out victorious in what has put them right back firmly in the title race. But how will Liverpool respond in the coming weeks? And with Man City racing up quickly behind them, what can anyone do to stop the juggernaut having a historic 4th title in a row? This is One Kick from Glory, and I'm joined by Craig. And I've got Matthew and Markus joining us over the phone, and we're going to hear their thoughts a bit later. We're going to start off with that game at the Emirates, a nice 3-1 victory for Arsenal, especially off the back of the earlier FA Cup defeat to Liverpool at the Emirates Stadium. There was a lot of, a feeling amongst the players and the fan base of the need for revenge was very strong. But for you, Craig, how did you feel about that match?
A great game. We dominated the whole game. The only time they scored, they had to score. The only way they could have scored was their own goal with a mistake, own goal when they scored their goal. They didn't penetrate us. We dominated the midfield, from the midfield to the attack. We pressed them high up. We won tackles in dangerous areas. We kept Jota quiet. We kept Nunes quiet when he came on as well. We kept the whole team quiet, to be fair. They didn't really have anything. We made mistakes. We got Van Dijk made a mistake. Alisson made a mistake. Konate got sent off, so we punished them in key areas. Our subs came on and scored. Trossard came on and clinched the game. So that's what you need from a team. You need to make sure when you're winning, get the killer goal. That's what we lacked this season in certain games that we never kill teams off, but we were able to do that on Sunday, so we won the game.
But I think it was a great game, Arsenal versus Liverpool. The tactical kind of setup of Arsenal and Liverpool, I think, was both quite interesting. Obviously, Arsenal won out, and I think that counter-attacking play and getting them aggressive, chances on the counter-attack once they'd already notched up a lead was a very, very good way to go. And yeah, look, Arsenal were very good in the first half, the best team for sure. And I think on that basis, you got to give them credit for what happened. Then I would also say in that regard that the second half was again a little different, more counter-attacking from Arsenal, and kind of doing what needs to be done and handling sustained pressure. So, from a purely Arsenal perspective, you're going to look at it saying, hey, we went to the team that was top of the league. We got a result. We picked up the 3 points, and we're right back in the midst of the title race. And I think that's a massive step for Arsenal on that path. So, all credit to Arsenal in that regard.
So I guess to go into the game in a lot more detail, obviously we knew from the outset, looking at the lineup that Arteta went with, especially the midfield composition of Rice, Jorginho and Ødegaard, it was going to be important to see how we played and lined up against their midfield of Gravenberch, Curtis Jones and McAllister. So it was going to be quite an interesting battle between those 6 players and which one would come out dominant. I think what was quite interesting as well was just how progressive Jorginho was with his passing and the speed of passing. How important do you think it was for Arteta in making that choice with the midfield 3 and helping to make the team play with a lot more fluidity in the match?
He has no Thomas Partey at the moment, so he has to rely on Jorginho. And I think in the big games this season that Jorginho's played, except the Tottenham game where he made an error, he's played well in the big games. When it comes to the big games, Jorginho starts in the big games. He started against Liverpool in the league game at Anfield, played well. Played well on Sunday against Liverpool. He won everything. He just won the ball. That's something Declan Rice should learn from as well, from Jorginho, the range of passing, where he can do them penetrating passes that can open up defences, where you can play them passes, slip through, and the midfielder's got, every time he played the ball straight through to Martinelli, Trent was gone. He left Trent couldn't handle him. So I thought that Jorginho had a top-class performance, player of the match for me in that game.
Yeah, he definitely was a key player for me. And I think what I really liked was the fact that he was playing a lot of things first time passes through the lines. And it was definitely, we saw that highlighted especially in the first goal, which was a brilliant sequence of play. David Raya's quick throw out, got it. No, I'm thinking of the chance that Martinelli got, to be fair. But the goal was a great example of that, the quick passing build-up play. We had Rice, Jorginho, Ødegaard who set it through. I think Martinelli was involved in the goal. Ødegaard set it through to play Havertz clean through on goal. His shot was well saved and Saka was there to follow it in. And it was nice to see both, him and Martinelli getting on the score sheet as well. And we want to talk about Martinelli's goal because there's been a lot of reactions from Liverpool fans online about, his role and how he managed to just put some pressure on Van Dijk and a minor nudge to kind of unsettle him. But how did you look back on that goal, and how would you describe it for those who probably haven't seen it?
It was a fair challenge. He obviously he was fighting for the ball. He kind of muscled Van Dijk off the ball. Van Dijk should have been stronger. To be fair, as a defender, you have to be stronger than the attacker if you're defending the goal. Van Dijk's a big guy. He's a big guy. So look at the size of compare Martinelli to Van Dijk. Van Dijk's a bigger guy than him, twice the size of him. So he should be able to hold off any little pressure. He made the pressure, and then Alisson tried to kick the ball, and he ended up kicking Van Dijk's leg, and that's why Van Dijk went down, and then Martha had an open goal and just slotted it in. So I would say that was a good goal, great goal to score. You have to, in football, if Fred made mistakes, you have to be there to capitalise on the mistake, punish the mistake. So that's what he did. Yeah. Clinical finishing.
And I think when you look across all three goals that Arsenal scored, Van Dijk was involved in all three of them. Got the deflection for Trossard's third goal, which we'll get onto a bit later. But it didn't look like he was at his very sharpest best, did he, yesterday? Oh.
Now, the goals were poor. Obviously, very, very poor performance from Alisson and Van Dijk, costing Liverpool with those goals. And you just have to wonder, big moments like that are very costly, and it kind of put Liverpool in a situation where they was on the back foot, and that's just inevitably the nature. Very, very poor position to put themselves in. I think, the midfield battle between Jorginho, Rice and Odegaard, Jones, McAllister, Gravenberch was a good battle. I think, Georgie had a brilliant game and was man of the match. Declan Rice is always solid, and it's kind of what Arsenal have been missing defensively. And then you got obviously Odegaard to be able to unlock. And, that's what Arsenal's probably near strongest midfield. You may want Havertz in instead of Jorginho, but you're kind of heading towards a stronger midfield, whereas Jones, McAllister, Gravenberch is not Liverpool's strongest midfield. You're missing
Szoboszlai,
who would be probably the replacement for Jones, and then maybe you have the strongest midfield, or you can argue this season Endo, McAllister, Szoboszlai too would be Liverpool's strongest midfield. But I think it was a good battle, and I think that Arsenal have managed to do very, very well to win the balls back in midfield where they needed to get across the line.
Do you think that maybe he might be, I don't know if he might be carrying an injury, but what did you think about his performance in the match?
Out of 10, I'll give him 3.
Wow.
He didn't do it. He wasn't the Van Dijk I knew that would dominate and bully. Because the Van Dijk I knew that for years, from like the team, for all the seasons he's been at Liverpool, the dominant figure. Like you wouldn't want to run against him. Martinelli was having a free run at him on Sunday. Just running at him for fun. He didn't care who was there. He didn't care if it was a bulldozer truck. He was bulldozing his way through all of them. He didn't have no fear. He was playing no safety. So yeah.
Yeah, he definitely played with a lot of heart and courage, and we saw that in everything he was doing. Obviously, he was very upset to be substituted for Trossard. But before I get into that final goal to kill it all off, I want to talk about Liverpool's equaliser, because it's one of those goals where it was giving me Carabao Cup final when it was the Carling Cup back then, Birmingham 2011.
Chesney
and Koscielny.
Yeah.
Now there's an age-old thing in football. You still play football. I used to play football when I was younger, and one of the things I remember our coach always saying to me was, get it out, clear it, deal with the ball, and then talk to your goalkeeper afterwards. The problem with that goal there is Saliba is trying to shield it for Raya to come and collect it. Mm-hmm. Now, at no point in time do I feel like Raya was in the position to come and get the ball. But that's what Saliba was trying to do. He was shielding the ball, trying to give him the space to get onto it. Diaz, to his credit, just hustled and was like, I'm going to get something on this ball, and manages to just wriggle around Saliba and just poke it back across goal, which takes Raya out of the occasion. And then Gabriel, in trying to run back and cover off the space for the cutback, he hits his arm. And then, he can't react fast. He can't adjust fast enough to kind of clear it off the line afterwards. So, it's an unfortunate own goal. If he did clear the ball off the line, it probably would have been given as a penalty for handball anyway.
And a red card.
I don't know, no, maybe not a red card, but definitely a handball, penalty, possibly yellow. So it's one of those situations where you kind of wish that one of them had took charge. It was not a ball for Raya to go for, as much as, Saliba might have thought he could have done, but it definitely gave me flashbacks to that. And I think it's one of those things that I think put a dampener on, or maybe like a minor dampener on Gabriel's performance. But I do want to get onto him because, again, there's been lots of talk about, when you look at the red card Liverpool got with Konate, and I think Gabriel had a couple of incidences where people are arguing online, he probably could have gotten a second yellow card for a similar type of bump challenge off the ball of one of Liverpool's players. But how impressed were you with Gabriel, and do you think that he is the top two of Arsenal's players of the season? But let's talk about his performance first.
I think his performance was excellent performance again. You can see how gutted he was when he missed out on the clean sheet. I think clean sheet means a lot to him. He won that clean sheet. But after he made that error for the goal, he made up for it in the second half. He was solid throughout the second half. He gave them nothing. This season, I have to say, he's been our best player this season. Hands down, been our best player this season. I know everyone's going to talk about the Sakas and the Martinelli and the Jesus as well, but he has stepped up. I remember at the start of the season, he didn't start the first two games, and I thought we were going to sell him. And then eventually he fought for his place back again. And ever since he's been back in the team, he hasn't missed a single game. He's played every game in the Premier League since he got back into the third team. So give credit for that, because a lot of players would have been sulking, not happy being on the bench, say I want to leave. But he just kept his head down and worked hard in training. The manager said, I need this guy back in the squad. Put him back in the squad, and look what he's done. Every game has been solid for us this season. Even the games we haven't been playing well, he's still been not giving up. He's still been showing for it. Still been trying to fight for the team. So yeah, that's good leadership. That's a leader, what you call right there.
I think for me, with his exclusion at the beginning of the season, I always felt it was a tactical thing because we didn't have Zinchenko fit back then, and we were playing Partey right back. We had Timber left back, and I just felt like the decision was to go for just to have more ball players and ball progressors on the pitch. So we started with it was Ben White and Saliba at centre half. So I think that's what Arteta was going for initially, was to just have more passes on the pitch. And yeah, once Zinchenko came back in, Gabriel returned, and the rest has been history since then. But yeah, he's definitely been one of our best players alongside Saliba, Declan Rice. Obviously Saka, he's just a numbers machine. Odegaard as well. So we've done really well with that. But let's reflect on what happened with Konate's red card. Now, let's talk about the challenge for second booking. I thought it was very stupid of Konate to do that. I don't think he needed to block off Havertz in that manner. I think he could have just stood his ground, and not step into him and have his arm up and across Havertz. I think if he just stands his ground, Havertz might run into him, and he might get away with it. But I think because he steps across him and his arm goes up, the referee saw it as a deliberate action. But how did you take that moment from Konate?
Very naive and stupid. Also, he didn't have to. He knows he's on a yellow card. Any little incident, especially in the Emirates, the fans are gonna rail up, the players are gonna rail up. So he played to the crowd. The crowd started railing up, and he got red card. So as a player, when you're on a yellow card, you have to be very careful about making silly challenges. Even if it's a little minimum contact, players are gonna go down. That's how the game is now. Players nowadays want to get players sent off. They'll do every little trick in the book to get players. Even happens against Arsenal, all the teams do it against each other. Once they know players on a yellow card, they're going to target that player to get a red card. So you have to be very careful. Gabriel was very fortunate not to get a red card as well, but I thought Konate was silly to get a red card. So it could have been avoided. Yeah,
it definitely wasn't a avoidable moment. I guess just throwing this to you, Matthew. What's your take on the refereeing performance? Because we know it's Anthony Taylor again. We know you have lots of thoughts about him, but what's your take on his performance in this match?
Look, you guys know how I feel about Anthony Taylor. It's never going to change. I once talked to a fan who said he seems to be one of the best in the Premier League. And if that's the case of him being one of the best in the Premier League as a standard, well, that tells you all you need to know about what's wrong in the refereeing in this league. Us on this channel here, we wax lyrical about exactly what's wrong with the referees. And it's the inconsistencies that really cost, the red card for Konate, fair play. But, for Gabriel, what is it to do with that? We've lost one prima donna in Mike Dean. It's almost as if he's kind of passed the baton to this guy and being like, take over from me, make it all about you know, as a top flying referee, it's a difficult pill to swallow where you're at the top of your game and then after some really costly mistakes, which I believe was the Tottenham Liverpool game, I can't remember, you're then in the Championship the next week. Now that's not a diss on the Championship. If anything, it's worse on their part because it's like they're still giving them that chance, and the Championship is just as competitive, maybe a little bit more competitive in a sense, because you've got teams that can get promoted. You know, if you look at the Championship table. You look at the Championship table, any of 10 teams have the potential to be promoted. So to put them in a high risk case like that, I think is a bad mark on their part. But look, I'm not convinced by this guy. I'm never going to be convinced by this guy. So I don't know why they keep on putting him in games. So like they do what they do, but you know, improvements still have to be made in this league, and it starts with, you know, retraining all the referees, and no offense, especially him.
Well, you never know. He might win you over, Matthew. So don't close the door just yet. But yeah, I do think there is an argument to be had either way in terms of that situation. You know, could Gabriel have also got a second yellow card for one of the fouls he had? I think it would. I think it would have been soft. I think it was a similar type of challenge, but I don't think he didn't step across the player the same way. He did block him off, but it wasn't quite the same.
Yeah, the referee was appalling, absolutely appalling, and 100%. Was just inconsistent, and I think this is the problem with the way that the referee made his decisions. It's just inconsistent. So as a Liverpool fan, I have no issue with the second yellow card for Konate. His arms went up. If he'd have kept his arms down, he'd have probably got away with it, but his arms went up, so therefore you get a second yellow card. 30 seconds to a minute later, Nunez is on the halfway line, tries to turn Gabriel, and Gabriel does the exact same thing that Konate got a second yellow card for. The referee doesn't even give a free kick, tells Nunez to get up, and then books him for dissent. And it's just ridiculous inconsistencies that happen throughout the game. Arsenal are through, Arsenal players going through. A Liverpool player puts a hand on his shoulder. The Arsenal player falls down. The referee gives the free kick and a yellow card. Jota's running through and gets dragged down by one of the Arsenal players. The referee tells Jota to get up. And doesn't even give a free kick. Like numerous decisions in that way where the referee clearly was just favouring Arsenal. And I'm not saying it's deliberate. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is that there was inconsistencies, which we always see with referees in football, but them inconsistencies so heavily leaned in Arsenal's favour that Liverpool was basically playing against Arsenal and the referee in that game. So referee rating for me 2 out of 10, and that's been kind.
Let's talk about Trossard's goal to make it 3-1. Like I said, Martinelli was very upset about coming off the pitch. He could sense goals, and in his post-match interview, he said quite eloquently, "I always do well against Liverpool," which is true. He always has something for them. But Leandro Trossard, he's a player that we got last January actually, in 2022-23 season. And when you look at actually our January signings as a whole, Trossard, Jorginho, Kivior, I think we've gone 3 for 3. When you think about what they've added to the squad in terms of squad depth with Kivior and rotation option, he came on at halftime and was absolutely amazing at left back / left centre back in possession. You think about Trossard, who we got in instead of Mudryk, and how Mudryk has struggled at Chelsea. You think about Jorginho, who was imperious in this game, and he has his flaws, but he has given us some highlight moments in his Arsenal career so far. You think about Aston Villa, that late goal to make it 5-4. You think about just generally how he plays in these bigger matches, but talk me through Trossard's winner and how happy are you that he's a gunner?
Got the ball, beat two players. He beat
Harvey Elliott
and somebody else. Who was playing fullback at the time? I think it was Diaz.
Yeah.
Went past both of them like they weren't even there. And the way Harvey's so quick on the ball, I didn't know he was that quick. I thought he ran so fast. Van Dijk didn't come across. By the time he was to come across, he just hit the shot, hit the toe of Van Dijk, went through the legs of Alisson, 3-1, game over. Trossard has been like a quality player for us since we've got him at the club. To be fair, he's been very unlucky not to start more games. But when he does come on, he has his moments when he plays so well when he comes on. And there's other games this season when he's come on and doesn't look like he's up for it. But that could be down to a confidence issue. Maybe he's not fit enough, whatever. But He's been a very good signing for us. Very, very good signing. Since he's come to the club, really him and Martinelli have been challenging each other for position for their place in the team. And he's given Martinelli a food for when Martinelli got dropped recently against Crystal Palace, and then Trossard started, and then Martinelli came on, got the winner, scored the 2 goals to kill the game off. It goes to show that that both players, it's good to have healthy competition in a team. No matter what, any business or what, anyway, it's good to have healthy competition. So I feel that them two are pushing each other is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is a big good thing and definitely helps out a lot. And I think one of the things that I like about the development of this squad is that you can see that the players are pushing each other and it's slowly kind of coming together in terms of what we want to achieve come the end of the season. But I guess on a final note on Arsenal before we move on to Manchester United is just looking at the team as a whole. And I think the analogy I'd use is you think about Arsenal last season, we were like the Red Arrows. We flew out the blocks, we were sharp in attack, we were very much looking to get the game wrapped up as quickly as possible. This year, we're a lot more methodical. We're more like a samurai. We're very selective. But we definitely dominate teams a lot more compared to last year. How have you, when you assess like Arsenal as a whole, do you look at it and think we've learnt our lessons from last season?
Definitely, 100%. I think we've learned our lessons. I think the last 3 games we've played, we beat Crystal Palace, we beat Nottingham Forest, and we beat Liverpool. The Nottingham Forest game, the Crystal Palace game was we battered. We scored the 2 goals in the first half, sat back. Second half, brought on the Killers to come on. The Killers came and killed the game off, won the game. Against Nottingham Forest, we were battering them, knocking on the door. Then Jesus unlocked it, and then I think it was who scored the second goal. Saka scored the second goal. Saka scored the second goal, killed the game off. Lapse in concentration. They scored like in the 90th minute. So that's one thing we have to be careful of in the matches. Like when we're winning, cruising, we have to make sure we switch on defensively and offensively to make sure we don't concede any sloppy goals. Against Liverpool on Sunday, we're winning, we're cruising the game. We switched off for 1 second, they went and scored a goal. It was our own goal. So one thing we have to do, we have to make sure we're focused for the whole 90, 93 or 98 minutes of the game, including stoppage time, because if we play against any team in the Premier League, any team can score against you. Doesn't matter if they're a lower league team, like a Luton, or the top of the table team like a Man City or Liverpool. You have to be, or a mid-table team like a West Ham or Chelsea. You always have to be focused throughout the whole 90 minutes because anything could happen at any moment. You could be cruising the game and they can go and score a goal and then that can change the whole aspect of the game. So you have to be focused throughout the whole game.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And I think that's one of the things I really do like about the team now. We do seem to have a lot more control, a lot more possession. We're not as clinical as I would like, but we're creating a lot of chances. So if we can keep improving in terms of our conversion rate of the chances we create, then I think we'll be fine. And we're right in the mix. We are in 3rd right now as Man City got their win against Brentford, so they're up to 2nd. They've got a game in hand, so that's going to be one to watch to see how this all plays out. But we're right in the mix and we're right where we needed to be. And I think that's really important. I guess for you, Matthew, what's like your kind of summary thoughts on the Arsenal-Liverpool match?
It was a great game overall. Watching that in a big, massive title race, a big title race in this part of the season. There's always going to be a time where, one of these 2 teams is always going to come out on top. And now I predicted the draw in the last weeks, but after the first 15 or so minutes, you could probably tell how the theme was going. You won battle in the midfield. They barely had a shot on target. I think one of the few they had was the own goal that you gave them towards the end of the half. But other than that, I know let's talk about the goals as well. Just being in the right place at the right time, especially for someone like Saka capitalizing on a poor save on Alisson's behalf. Someone like that palming it into danger. It's just a bit of a comedy of errors, to be brutally honest. As a goalkeeper, to kind of palm it away where it's safe. Should have realised that Saka was coming up right on his left-hand side, so technically where his near post is. So if anything, it's kind of a little bit of an own goal, to be brutally honest. The game kind of consisted of a few errors on the mark of the defence and the keepers. Alisson's first, the second one, between him and Van Dijk, it's just lack of communication, which at this level you wouldn't expect. you know, when you're going towards a title, you've got potential to go 8 points clear in a title race. You know, City still have yet to play. Obviously, their result came through and, you know, they won. So it's very much a 3-horse title race. You can't afford to be making mistakes at this level. You know, certain players missing from the squad, and then they're missing Salah for a while. But, you know, with a team like Liverpool and, you know, the news that they got with Jurgen Klopp leaving at the end of the season, they're going to want to give him a nice end of season treat, give them some kind of trophy. They're still in the hunt for 4, but this was a massive dent in their title hopes. You know, it's going to get a lot tougher from here. It's now the start of February, got best part of 3 months left of the season, and this is where it gets dicey. They've got Champions League coming back, you know, playing in Europe and stuff. So this was, although they're still ahead, they've got a very small, slight cushion. They really can't afford any more losses from here on in.
Yeah, it does put a lot of kind of pressure on everyone, and you know, like we just need to keep going. And we know that because of some of our draws earlier in the season, I think our margin for error might be gone. We might just have to win everything, league match-wise, between United this season to stay in with a good shot of winning the whole thing. But that's us. Let's move up to Manchester and talk about Manchester United first. They got a nice win at home against West Ham. Yeah, who we've got at the weekend. Good to see Hodgson continuing his goal-scoring streak. Garnacho, hat-trick. Can't complain. Do you think Ten Hag's turning it around, or is it still just a blip again and they'll be back to their usual mediocrity again?
As I said many times before, Man United is a very unpredictable team. Like, as I said, to the second half of the season, they always seem to pick it up, where they start the season sluggish, and the second half of the season, towards the end of the season, they'll pick up the important wins that they need, and they'll climb up the table. I don't think they're that far away from 4th place, are they?
No.
Numbers-wise, points-wise, they're not that far away. They could go on a long run now. This is the thing that I'm telling you about, unpredictability. They can go on a long run, go unbeaten for rushing out to the end of the season and win all their games and get in the top 4. And then everyone will not talk about having a bad season. They'll say, oh, well, we've got Champions League football. But, yeah, West Ham were missing a lot of players on Sunday, to be fair. They lost a lot of players to injury and whatever. So, Man United beat their team. They beat them fair and square. You have to beat what's on paper. They beat them on paper, fair and square. They got the win. But, yeah, Man United is just one of them teams, man. You can never write them off. No matter how poor of a season they're having, they always seem to come back and do well. Don't know how they do it, but they do it.
Well, they're currently 6 points behind Tottenham, who are in 5th. They are 8 points off 4th. So it's not insurmountable, but it is a good amount of points. And Aston Villa are currently in 4th. So, yeah, I mean, it could go down the wire. It just depends on form. They need to go on a run of form. They got Aston Villa next. So if they can take 3 points of Aston Villa, that will put them in a much stronger position to look at chasing down top 4. But I don't know with Man United. It's a hard one. I can never really call it with them because I always feel like, you know, you give them a chance and they let you down. So I don't really know.
Yeah, great result for Man United, getting across the line with a win again, and you know, looking good. Then they need it though because they're miles behind everyone. So it's good for them to just about. It's good that they just got across the line for them. And I'm really happy to see Rasmus Højlund picking up and finding his finishing touch. It's what you want to see for a striker, because he seemed to lack a lot of confidence, and has had a really tough start to his Man United career. And whilst I hate Man United, I am very, very impressed by the work ethic and the attitude, even when things have been difficult. So I think for me that's it's nice to see for him, and I hope he can keep scoring goals and Man U keep losing games.
But I'm glad that they're finding their shooting beats. I mean, I guess you, Matthew, what's your thoughts on that match?
I remember saying that the top 4, how it would look towards the end of the season. I think we had in any given remaining order was like Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, and I reluctantly put Man United in there as finishing up the top 4. And this game they had against West Ham proves me just why I said why these guys are going to do it, because they're the only team to do what they can do, where they can just turn it around and save face for their manager at just the perfect moment. Like, he's fighting for his job at the moment, because considering on how much they spent, the players they brought in, the players and the squad that they have, the problems they have in the squad with the likes of Anthony, Rashford recently. and with the failed experiment with Jadon Sancho, who've been going back to Borussia Dortmund, there's always going to be playing for Man United is like not playing for any other real club. It's always going to have that theatre of dreams and thing, kind of, like with the youngsters coming in, come and just doing the most. They've been celebrated so much in that game. Credit to them, they were really good in that game. I'm not going to take that away from them, but it's a celebration around these young players playing for a prestigious club like Manchester United. Because the last time a whole bunch of good young players played for Manchester United, they terrorised the league for nearly 20 years. Okay, for 20 years, and that legacy kind of carried on. Am I in any way saying any shape or form, but the glory days are coming back? Absolutely not. They are nowhere near where they are. But with results like this against a good team like West Ham that they're competing with, it's always going to mean something. They have this way of being forgiven real quick for all of their failures. Now, that doesn't mean much for me coming from a Chelsea fan. We're failing, and we're failing hard. We're failing better than them. If you give us a chance to do something, we'll do it right, even when it comes to failing.
You guys are failing way more than failing better than them. You guys are the specialists in failure right now, and it's not even close.
But they're turning a corner right where they need to be. They're getting the wins on the table, and they're not massively far from the top four. It's a realistic thing for them. So, yeah, it could be the turnaround they need, but the next few games, we've still got some tough games coming up. We've still got to play them at the Bridge, which means nothing at this moment, to be honest. But they've got other tough games coming up. For every good game like this, they might play or lose and they might go horribly wrong. So maybe, I don't know if he's turned the corner just yet, but we'll see in the next few games.
We'll definitely see. But I think, as Craig used to say, they are a very unpredictable team. And I think it helps that they've getting their key players maintaining their form. Like I said, Hodgson going on a goal-scoring run. Garnacho, who I think is their player of the season right now, barring Bruno going on an incredible, 6 months run. I think it's going to be Garnacho for player of the season. But what do you think it is that has helped set Garnacho apart this season, outside of just the fact that he's been scoring goals? But what is it about him in his performances that you think typifies what a Man United player is about and should be about?
I think it's Cristiano Ronaldo. When Ronaldo was there at United, he learned a lot from him. And I'm guessing he watched a lot of Ronaldo videos and studies his game, the way how he prepares, trains. I think he does the same, similar to Ronaldo. He wants to be the best player in the world. He wants to learn from the best, play with the best. And I think that's what he done. I think when Ronaldo was at the club, he had watched everything he did, how he prepared for matches, how he did his gym work, all that stuff. And I think he said, you know what? If I want to be the best midfielder in the Premier League or in the world, I've got to do similar things like don't go partying, don't do this, don't do that. Just focus on football, focus on building up my body strength, focus on finishing. Like, for example, that goal he scored against Everton, that bicycle kick. Who did he learn that from?
Maybe Wayne Rooney. He hit one of those, famous in the Manchester derby.
It's true. But, I think Garnacho has been Man United's player of the season. Him and Kobe Manu, them two have been player of the season so far. I think Garnacho's got great potential. If he stays injury free and stays at United for the next couple of seasons, I think United will save a lot of money on buying a winger in his position, because they got someone ready and waiting to play every game in that position.
Garnacho's been fantastic. I think there's definitely a shout for young player of the season. Potentially he's definitely been Man United's player of the season so far. He's got some great goals. He's, injected a lot of, quality and pace and, kind of youthful enthusiasm without the fear, into Man United. I think the big problem that Man United have is they've not played him enough, to be honest. I think he probably deserves more game time. So yeah, that's the only thing I would say regarding Garnacho. And yeah, there's some positive signs for, Mr. Ten Hag. Whether he'll still be there at the end of the season still remains to be seen. But yeah, certainly some positive signs.
Yeah, they do definitely have a bona fide superstar in the waiting in the Garnacho, and he's showing himself to be one of the key performers this season in the Premier League. I mean, we often joke about Ten Hag and how things are going, but like you said, it's hard to predict with them. But do you think, and I'm thinking back on their last couple of games, even though they are unpredictable, and even though Man United are kind of a bit inconsistent, do you think there's signs that it's starting to come together for him? Or do you think that's still way too hard to say?
I thought it's coming together for him, but it's under pressure now. They've got new owners in. They're going to want to bring in their own man eventually. So I think they're going to give him to end. I was saying this over to one of my Man United friend. We were discussing it online. And he said to me that basically they're going to give him to end of the season, and then they're going to change him. They're going to review it end of the season, and they're going to make a decision on him. So he's playing for his future, basically.
Who would you bring in then? Who would you bring in as a replacement?
I was hearing rumours of Mourinho wants a second spell at United, but I don't think Mourinho is the kind of manager that they need for the long term. Maybe for the short term, and then they have to bring in a bigger name, a guy that can therefore, like when they brought Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the club as an example, and they brought him in for a couple of years, and he did. I don't know. He didn't do. He done what he could do. He didn't really get them. He didn't take them to the next level, like winning the league. But he got them second. Got them to a couple of semi-finals and finals. Lost them. But I thought United need a good manager that's there for a good 10, 15 years kind of manager. Like someone like a Guardiola example, like a Guardiola kind of type of manager who will go in there, shake up the squad, get rid of who he wants to get rid of, and build a team around the young players. That's what I think United need to do for the future. Build around the youth. They've wasted so much money on average players over the years. When I mean average players, they've wasted a lot of money on players who are just average, looking for a final payday, and then they're gone. Like, I feel like United have to just, like what they did in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, look at youth. They've got a good youth academy. They've got a lot of good young players right now in the academy. Some of them are playing first team football now. I think they just need to look at the youth and build it with a couple of one or two good, solid pros who that can get the best out of the team, and I think they'll do well. They'll come back again.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what they do. I mean, the Guardiola example though, what's interesting is that this is probably the longest he's spent at a club, because usually he's at most clubs for about 3 years, then he moves on. So Man City's been an exception to the rule. I was hoping he would have announced his decision to leave soon, but obviously the charges haven't fully come through yet, so maybe he's waiting to hear what's going to happen with that before making a decision. But either way, like you said, Ten Hag's under a lot of pressure. He's getting a tune out of the players, and the younger ones are the ones that are proving to be more reliable. So maybe that's the play going forward for them, just to lean into that. I guess on a final note, well, we've got 2 more topics to talk about on the podcast. Not much more to say about Man City versus Brentford. Neil Maupay, the wind-up merchant, had a go at Kyle Walker in his situation with his personal life. Neil Maupay will always do Neil Maupay things, never change. Look,
Phil Foden was outstanding. To the kind of detriment of my fantasy football team, because I took him out so I could have Haaland back in, and man goes and bangs in a hat trick. So that's typical. But yes, I think we have to look at that and say, what a fantastic individual performance from Phil Foden. And I'm impressed by his performance this season, and he's kind of developing. Somebody said to me that he'd got 250 games played for Man City now and 125 goal contributions, which is a lot better than I expected, if in fact true. So that's a goal or an assist every 2 games, which is very good for a young attacking midfielder. And maybe because he is English, some of the kind of overrated natures of Phil Foden when he kind of came through have been kind of focused on, but maybe he is starting to come into his own, especially since Kevin De Bruyne had not played much this season too. So good result for City, puts them back in the mix in the title race again as well. And I think City are obviously still favourites. You'd expect them to be so. So yeah,
I want to talk about the Crystal Palace game against Brighton, because to me it's worrying how things are progressing at Palace. And right now, if I look at their position in the league, they're currently 14th on 24 points. It's not insurmountable that they could get dragged into a relegation battle. Everton are in the bottom 3 in 18th on 19 points. You've got Burnley in 19th on 13 points, and then Sheffield at the very bottom of the table on 10 points. Now, 19, 24 points, it's a 5-point gap. And if Palace don't pick up some points soon, I mean, their last 5 games, they've lost against Chelsea, then they beat Brentford, and they lost against Arsenal, and they beat Sheffield United, and they lost against Brighton. So they're very up and down. They've got Chelsea again next. So, they might do the double on Chelsea, they lost Chelsea, but if they can keep this win-loss thing going, that'd be all right. But they must be looking over their shoulders with a bit of concern.
You see, I think the problem Palace have, in all honesty, at the moment is that they're in a situation in which they have a couple of really good players, Olise, Eze, of course, top players that could play at better teams, but that also they tried to step forward and do something different with Vieira, and it didn't quite work out. So they're kind of back to we need a man that can keep us in the Premier League. We need a man that can keep us in the Premier League, and that's kind of where they're at. And I think that's always a problem for teams like Palace, that, you know, the innovation hasn't worked out with Vieira, but it shouldn't stop them trying to push forward and get managers that are not just going to keep them in the Premier League. So I think Palace need a refresh, they need a rethink, and to keep hold of the likes of Olise and Eze, they need to be able to be pushing and getting good results. And I think, you know, the Brighton game was an example of a bad day at the office for Crystal Palace.
I feel like with Palace has been in the Premier League for over 10 years now. They've been in the Premier League for a long time. I personally thought the investment in the club has been very poor. They haven't bought the right type of players. They bought in the Eze was a good sign-in. Olise was a good sign-in. Edouard, the jury's still out on him. Mateta, for the amount of money they paid for him, jury's still out on him as well. They've got good young players, but they need a striker who could score 20 goals a season. Obviously, they lost Wilfred Zaha. He was their main talisman last season. Or for all the seasons he's been there, he was winning them matches, scoring goals for fun. He's gone now. I honestly thought Eze and Olise have stepped up a lot, but they've been injured a lot as well. So it's been very difficult for them to have a consistent team out every week. The back four has been changed around a lot this season. Gueye is not the same player he was last season. If you look at, he's been out of form. Anderson has dropped off a lot.
So true.
The goalkeeping situation, like Sam Johnson is their best goalkeeper, to be fair. Henderson came in for a couple of games, conceded a lot of goals. I don't know what's happened to him. He's gone backwards as well. He was a good goalkeeper before. I don't know what's happened to him. Their midfield, their centre mid, they get eaten up. They get opened too easily. Their wingers are not scoring enough goals. Like Andre Ayew not scoring.
He's a top goal scorer though.
Is he? Jordan Ayew. So Jordan Ayew needs to do more. The other wingers need to do more as well. If Olise is injured, they need to step up a bit more. I just feel the investment in the club has been poor over the last 10 years. They need to invest in better players, better quality players. Like a club like Crystal Palace has been in the Premier League for over 10 years. They should be challenging for Europe. Look at example for Brighton. Brighton have been in the Premier League less time than Crystal Palace, and they seem to be attracting world-class players like Fati, comes from Barcelona, goes to Brighton. A player like Fati should be going to a club like Crystal Palace, to be fair. If that's the type of player that they should be attracting to the club. Like Brighton can attract a Danny Welbeck, for example. They can attract a James Milner. They can attract a Lallana. Them type of players they can attract. Like Crystal Palace need to be attracting them type of players to try and climb up the table and try and challenge for Europe, I would say.
Just to clarify on the goals, so the joint two top goal scorers are Hodgson, Edouard and Mikel Olise on 6 goals. Eze's got 5, and then Ayew has got 2, Mateta's got 3. They are really struggling for goals in their team. It's really, really poor. Jeffrey Schlupp's got 1. Anderson's got 2. Tyke Mitchell's got 1. That's it.
It's not good enough.
It's not enough goals. And one of the things I always say about the Premier League is that you need goals, especially at the bottom half of the table. Like the thing that helps set you up is you need a good, reliable goal scorer, someone that can get you at least 10. You know, that's what you need. I mean, Edouard's not far off, but then when you watch him in matches, he just doesn't really convince you a lot.
No, it doesn't, no.
Mateta works hard, but he doesn't get enough either.
Edouard was good at Celtic, but he hasn't stepped off. Since he come to the Premier League, the numbers in the Premier League has not justified the amount of money that Palace paid out for him.
It hasn't translated at all, and that's one of the things that you look at and think, as a point of concern, it's like, why is it that his form is not materialising the way they would want? One of the players I want to talk about really quickly is Mikel Olise. Obviously, he had an injury in midweek prior to their game at the weekend, and then he couldn't start the match because they were concerned about his injury, but he was past fit enough to be on the bench. They brought him on, lasted about, I think, 3 minutes, and now he's going to be out for a couple of months. When you look at situations like that, considering everything that's been going on at Palace, like, how do you kind of assess that? Because you, on the one hand, you can look at the player and say, even though he declared himself fit, should someone have said, nah, you're not going to play in this one? You've got the medical team, and at Arsenal, we had issues for a number of years of players being brought back when they weren't fully fit. When we think about all the times Koscielny would break down, you think about Rosiski's injury issues and many other players who've had that. Then you think about the manager and think ultimately, like, even though the player says he's fit and the coaching staff says he's fit, in a game like that, you're already 3-0 down. Like, realistically, is he going to turn the match around that big of a deal? So how would you look at that situation?
If I was a manager, and that could have cost him his job.
It might have cost him his job because he still might go.
I would have a review at the medical team. Whoever made that error needs to be sacked. To be fair, because it could cost them their place in the Premier League. If Olise is out for 2-3 months and Palace don't start winning them 2 months, they could be heading down. They could go down and Everton go up, or whoever's in that bottom 3 could go up. So that's what the level of that's what the level playing field is. Like, either a player's injured, he should have said no instantly. He was not fit. I saw when he came on the pitch, did a sprint.
Yeah, one after one young ball, and he's just like, nah, done.
I'm done.
And I looked at it and I thought to myself, okay, the medical staff might have passed him fit, but if he's not fit enough to start,
he shouldn't be on the bench.
Be involved.
Rest him for a couple of weeks and then we can get fully fit. When you need him for the big games, because I know Brighton's a big game, a local rival rivalry, but you got to think of the relegation 6 pointers, like the teams like the Nottingham Forest of the world, the Lutons of the world, the Burnleys of the world, the Sheffield United. Those are the type of games you should be focusing on getting him fit for, not the derby against Brighton. At the end of the day, Brighton are higher up on the table than you. They're in Europe. You guys are not. You should worry about the lower league teams who are in the bottom. We can take points off between now and the end of the season.
But also for me, it's about momentum and game state. If Palace at that point in time were creating chances, were making opportunities, and looked like, okay, there might be a chance for us turning this game around, then that sub makes sense. The game was done.
It was 3-0 down. It was done. And when he came off, they were 4-0 down. They lost. Was it 4-1 they lost, isn't it?
Yeah. It was done. There was nothing that you were going to salvage from it. So it felt like a very bad decision, and one that I hope Palace don't regret, but might be one of those ones they do. For you, Matthew, what's your take on that match?
I mean, talk about two clubs on like different trajectories. I didn't realise it in this, but actually like big rivals, Brighton and Palace. Must be something to do with their logos both being birds or something. But the Seagulls have definitely got the number of the Eagles at the moment right now. I mean, one thing, Brighton are on the pathway trying to get to Europe. They're already in Europe. They're playing really good football. I mean, they're still doing it in a very sustainable way. They buy cheap, sell high. Saying to the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Spurs, and still pulling in like mad talent as we speak. I mean, you look at that team right now, and other bigger teams are looking out, but at the same time, they're still playing sensational football. And that's before you get to the manager, who's being considered for the Liverpool job. It shows you the direction what they're going. I'm not saying that Palace should be doing exactly that. They're very much doing their own thing. And for the partly when for the first time when Vieira arrived, and then when Roy kind of steadied the ship, they were doing some really good stuff. They had their talisman in Zaha. They had some good young talent around them. It's a very good young, youthful, talent-bedded players that are allowed to blend there and build under massive experience. And the fans realise that. They go there for the exciting football. They're not necessarily there for the trophies. They're there for the excitement for the football. It's like that kind of unique clubs like that in the league to kind of balance out the Premier League. So it's such a shame that a club like that is being run so kind of poorly right now. I mean, the Zaha thing, the transfer was an absolute kerfuffle on their part because they fumbled so bad on a talent like that. I mean, letting him go for a free. He's off now playing in European football. He's doing what he was meant to do for many, many years ago. But you sold him on a free, your talisman. When you could have sold him to a bunch of other clubs for, upwards of 50, 60 million, maybe even 80 million, easily to put around the ground, where you could have bought him up with the likes of Olise, and Eze and alike, and on Olise, in that game, you question, like, as much as you know you're going to get whooped by Brighton, was it worth having him there in the first place, knowing full well he isn't fully fit? He's one of your better players. We said before, before we bid for him and failed, which shows how good a player he is. So it's not got some other clubs going in for him as well. He played a lot. I mean, I think he's played involved in a lot of FA Cup games. Some of the fans said so. We question, why is he doing that when survival should be the main priority? He had the poor result against Brighton, another poor result against Arsenal as well. Just put to the sword. So it's a bit of a whipping boy at the moment, but I think the fans have a right to be kind of frustrated, because it's not like they're a Chelsea or an Arsenal or a City or a Liverpool or something demanding some kind of success and trophies. They just want to see some really good football, and for the most part, that's what they have with the players they have right there. But you still have to run it. Look at the likes of Brighton. Hell, look at Wolves right now. They don't spend a lot of money. They've had to let go of a lot of their players, but they're riding that wave nicely, where they're getting just enough amount of survival to stay in the Premier League and still remain somewhat competitive in the cups. But when they realise what they have to do in the league, they still try and survive. Chelsea learned that the hard way with Kahuna getting his hat trick on Sunday. Gary O'Neill, again, another young up and coming manager, doing a cracking job there. Bournemouth are going to want. Bournemouth are lucky they're doing what they're doing right now, and not necessarily missing out on him too much, but something kind of needs to be done. I think they do owe Roy their thanks for all the years of service they had before, and giving all these young players a chance, then stepping by when Patrick Vieira came in and stepping back into when they needed survival. But clearly, it's like his idea. It's like he's kind of running out of ideas, and needs a bit of fresh blood. Crystal Palace thrives on having some fresh blood, and in that squad, you question who that person could be. Another young and up and coming manager, someone who kind of knows how to work with kind of like younger players a little bit. I mean, it will be interesting to see. I mean, I know I've criticised him many times in the past before, but I'm still hoping that I will still stand by the fact that I think Frank Lampard could be a good idea. He's worked with young players before. He did it with the first time with Chelsea. He did reasonably well. It went wrong when he brought in all the bigger stars, of course. But someone like that, I think, will be a good thing. Or even
hold on. I guess for you, Craig, Frank Lampard as an option. I mean, for me, I think the manager that I would be more inclined to see as a great option for Crystal Palace is Steve Cooper, actually.
So I was to say the same one. So Steve Cooper or the manager of Liverpool, he's available. He'll be a good manager for them. He works with Wolves last season. He kept them up.
He did keep them up, and then he had a disagreement with the owners about. But then I guess the issue is then with how Palace have been with their spending, Lopetegui might clash with their owners there. So I don't know. I think Lampard is not the one I would definitely lean on.
I think Lampard needs to go manage like a low league team. Low, start from the bottom.
Going down.
Start from the bottom and work your way up again.
Yeah.
Because he's had big jobs at Chelsea twice. Everton didn't work out.
Derby,
he had one good season at Derby, didn't get them promoted. So he hasn't really had a great manager. He had one good season at Chelsea when he got them to the top four with no money spent. But his managerial career has not been great. And I always say that there's a saying that not all great players make great managers.
I think a League One team or even a Championship team. You know what? In fact, this is what I'm going to say. I don't know if it would work with rivalries and everything, but a club that are struggling and that could do with a lift, and he might be the man to do it. Yeah. How about Lampard at QPR?
Chelsea rivalry.
I know there's the Chelsea connection. I know it will be a bit techie, but if he's able to go in there, galvanise because he's got great ideas. When you hear him as a pundit, you listen to what he has to say, you think, this guy understands football. Somehow, some way, it doesn't translate enough to be successful as a manager. So maybe that could be a move for him.
Or even Birmingham City.
Birmingham City could be another move as well. But there should be somewhere for him to go where he can develop his ideas without the pressure of having to be at the top level, but also at a club that has the aspirations of getting up there. I think that could be the way to go.
Yeah.
But we'll see what he does next. We're going to call it a wrap there. Thank you all for listening so much to this week's episode of One Kick from Glory. As I said before, Arsenal are back in the title race. The celebration police are upset. But you know what? Jamie Carragher, Richard Keys, and Gary Neville, Go to the shop and buy some straws, innit? And we'll be back in next week.
Yes.